A click might not sound like much, but in the world of work, too many clicks leads to frustration. In this video, we're going to run you through a typical business scenario, which involves several steps, and show how HyperOffice compares with Microsoft Office 365 in terms of clicks. Let's imagine a situation where two companies are competing for a design project. George has a 15-person boutique in Seattle, and Jill is the founder of a digital media startup in New York. Both need to set up a 5-member project to submit their design. George has just purchased Office 365, while Jill chose HyperOffice. Both George and Jill will go through the following steps: set up users, create a meeting, share a document, and assign a task. We will compare how George and Jill did in each section and keep the click counter running. First, let's see how George does with setting up users in Office 365. To set up just a single user, he has to go through 5 different screens. Now he will set up the other 4 users. George could do a bulk add, but since he doesn't know what a CSV file is, he has to go through the process 4 more times. Now he is already at 40 clicks. To customize his site, there are more than 40 different configuration pages in site administration. George could easily get overwhelmed here. Now let's switch to Jill and see how she did setting up users on HyperOffice. When Jill first logs into HyperOffice, she sees the user setup wizard. The wizard allows her to add all her 5 users in a single step, and she is ready to begin her design project in just 6 clicks. Now let's go back to George and see his experience setting up a meeting in Office 365. George will need to go to the calendar section. To share a calendar, George has to first create a new calendar. This calendar is just a personal calendar, and George needs to share it with his team first so they can see the events and also add events. This involves multiple steps. Now that the calendar is shared, George can finally create his meeting and invite his team members. Now that he has sent out the invitations, the event will appear on the shared calendar. Now let's see how Jill did with her meeting in HyperOffice. Jill enters the calendar section. Every group already has a shared calendar, so Jill is immediately set to create a new event and invite her team members to the meeting. And since she doesn't have to configure her calendar, this saves her time and clicks. Now we will go through the Documents and Tasks section in Office 365, because the document we upload will later be needed when we set up a task. Here, George first needs to upload the design document to make it available to others. In order to go to the Document section, he has to go to a completely different environment called Team Site. It is from here that he can upload his design document. George now wants to see who has access to this file. He has to dig deep into the document permissions to find this out. Then, he realizes it is set to public access by default. To fix this permission would require him to visit many screens. Next, George wants to set up a task and assign it to his team. For this, he again needs to go to the Outlook environment, then go to the Task section. George creates a task, and now he wants to link the shared document that he uploaded earlier. But George discovers that there's no way to access that document, and his only option is to upload another copy from his desktop. This means that every time a team member needs to work on the document, they need to download it to their computer. The team ends up with multiple versions of the same document floating around. The option to assign a task does not exist, so George has to forward a copy to all his team members. He can't forward it until he saves, closes, and reopens the task, which creates more clicks. Now he can forward this task, but since everyone gets a copy, it is unclear who is responsible and who just needs to be kept in the loop. George could create shared project and task lists in his team's site, but this requires advanced knowledge and customization. Now in Jill's case, we first enter the task section because both things can be rolled into a single step, as we will soon see. She enters group projects to set up a new task. She creates a task and assigns it to 2 of her team members. Since tasks are shared, everyone in the team is kept in the loop, while responsible persons know exactly what to do. And since all sections in HyperOffice are interconnected, Jill also attaches the design document to the task right from the task section and saves it in shared documents in the same step. Now that the task is linked to a central copy of the document, all her team members are working off a single central document, which avoids the confusion of multiple versions floating around. If Jill wanted to see who has access to this document, she can easily find this information in the file details. Now, even though George was familiar with Office 365 and knew exactly what actions to take, this simple scenario took 86 clicks with hundreds more to come. We also saw that in Office 365, everything was fragmented, and George had to navigate through multiple applications and windows. In a real business situation, however, none of the parts of a project are separate, but part of an organic whole. Jill completed the same scenario as George did in Office 365 in nearly a third of the clicks. With this, we just covered a simple scenario for a fair side-by-side comparison, but that was the old way. HyperOffice provides a new social approach to team collaboration. Let's illustrate this. In HyperOffice, users and groups have activity walls where they can connect with others and get real-time updates of whatever is happening in the company. Jill goes to the group wall and initiates the project by posting a message for all of her team members. She also attaches the task to the message for everyone to see. Everyone in her team is informed on their own activity walls. They can even update the task and document and post comments. Jill and her team finish the project right there. All the project information is captured for future reference. By choosing HyperOffice, Jill was able to get software out of the way and focused on what she does best: design.